Hello, beautiful soul. Today I wanted to have a chat and channel session with you discussing the spiritual ego and the fawn response and how that has been programmed in so many of us who consider ourselves empaths, sensitives, light workers, energy healers, and more. Before we get started, if you are new here, welcome. My name is Danielle, #Damcl, at These Enlightened Edits of damcldesigns.com. I am a psychic medium, spiritual advisor, and quantum and Sikhem energy channel, healer, and artist. And in these chat and channel sessions, my guides, or in some cases some of you, present me with a topic and we have a stream of consciousness channeling on it. Now, before we jump in, I want to invite you to open up the Notes app on your phone or favorite device, or get out an old-fashioned journal and consider doing some stream of consciousness writing along with me. This is because through the light codes in my voice, this audio also acts as a transmission and invites, if you so choose to accept the invitation, the opportunity for you to work with your guides of your own and do some stream of consciousness writing to get your own messages and more. I have heard back from some of you as listeners and clients that you've been able to do this, and I am so happy to offer that opportunity and that alternative side of chat and channel session. If you are so inclined, you can also take part in the chat of this chat and channel session by leaving a comment or interacting in the live chat comments during the premiere. But with all that being said, let's get started. Today I wanted to, as I said, talk about the spiritual ego. Now, there are many definitions of the ego. I currently most resonate with Alan Watts and his example of the ego. However, if you explore that, or if there is another version that more fits for you, that is fine. The version of the ego that we need to be discussing today is the fact that in the spiritual community, the ego is demonized a little bit, but in essence, if you're alive, everyone has and needs an ego. The ego's job and function stems from the reptilian aspects of our brain, the very primitive parts. And yes, I know to my starseeds out there, the reptilian name itself can be a trigger for you. I apologize about that. You may read some other implications if you are a starseed, but the fact is that all of our brains have that primitive survivalist aspect. And the ego itself, in my experience as a shamanic practitioner on both sides of life, is implanted sort of again with each new incarnation that we have. Because of the fact that the ego is not necessary in the world of spirit, it is necessary while we are here in physical form, as I said, to keep us alive. Now, the ego likes and appreciates and develops from means of trying to keep us safe and sameness. So the ego is the part of us that will often resist change or resist growth if it is taking us too far outside of our comfort zone. It strives to keep us alive, and so the experiences that we have had before will be the ones that it has deemed safe or unsafe, even if looking back as an adult, we can see that situations aren't actually safe. If we have survived those situations, sometimes the ego will classify them as safe because they are known rather than unknown. And the fact is, many of us as empaths and spiritual people have developed an ego from an early age where we may have been raised with codependent or abusive caretakers or parents who, quite frankly, didn't really know how to respect energy or energy boundaries, or we may have visualized them not taking care of themselves. And so us, as in a lot of cases, a more awakened or perhaps older soul, took on this role of caretaking. So This can happen, in my experience, in two ways. The first is that we do have well-meaning parents, but perhaps they're going through a lot, and we see that there are ways that we could maybe help them more. And so we automatically drop our own needs and take on this role of extra responsibility based on the fact that we know our soul is capable of more, even if our physical body at that young age or our physical mind's development isn't quite ready to take on more. And so that's one way where we can take on this role of over empathizing, over caring, or going into this fawn response of people pleasing. The other way is we can grow up, as I said, with abusive parents or caretakers, whether that is intentional abuse or neglect or unintentional abuse or neglect, right? These people could have their own personality disorders such as BPD or narcissism and simply not have the means at that time to control it. But if we grow up in such cases, those parents usually try to make energy or problems or responsibilities the responsibility of that empathic or light worker or awakened child to take care of. In some cases, parents use their children as an excuse. Perhaps they overshare their feelings with their children, forgetting their young age or the fact that they may not know how to deal with everything. A lot of times parents blame this or use the excuse that their child is so mature. And while, yes, that child may be awakened or gifted or mature, it does not mean that the adult should alleviate any of their suffering or any of their responsibility to become that of the child's. Now, every family can do this to a certain extent, and of course people go through different things in life and different hard times. But if it becomes a pattern where the parent or caretaker either doesn't or cannot take care of themselves or overly puts responsibility on that of the child, we can go into this trauma response of the fawn people pleaser response. Now, in a lot of traditional psychology, the fight or flight response is quite well known of the nervous system. The fawn response is a branch of that. It is a newer branch that is being explored more in the past few decades, but it is the same extension of nervous system response. So this would be where instead of fighting back at the parent or people in our lives, this can obviously happen outside of childhood as well, but in my experience, it stems from a pattern that is developed in childhood. And so instead of fighting back or crying or yelling or screaming, we tend to internalize that and go into the fawn response. Instead of criticizing the people around us for the ways they may be treating us unfairly or not respecting our boundaries, needs, or energy, we criticize ourselves for not being able to handle more or take on enough responsibility. And enough will be gauged upon whatever the people around us make us feel is enough or not, right? In some families, it's simply never enough. And so we're constantly striving to people please and to jump in response or reaction to other people's needs in that fond people pleaser response, rather than tell people that we can't handle it at that moment, or ask for our space, or let people know that we believe things to be their responsibility rather than ours, or simply respond with love and say, hey, I really care about that, but I'm not sure what I can do about it right now, or I just don't have the capacity or energy to deal with it right now, but I really love you, which is an appropriate response as well. A lot of us don't realize that as empaths and caretakers and people who love others and the world so much, but in my experience, it's a healthier way to go about things so that we are not burning ourselves out or promoting codependency. Because to put it in other terms, when we do this, when we develop this fawn response, we also develop a pattern of behavior where we self-betray, where we have a great need, but we have a switch that's flipped in our brain that says to provide for others before we provide for ourselves. And then many of us can go into lives or other relationships or careers or side hustles or vocations where we feel that we need to provide for and solve the problems of others without also providing simultaneously for ourselves, or providing for ourselves first so that we are pouring from a full cup. And so I want to encourage you, if any of this has resonated today, first remember to hit that like button to show me that it's resonated and to show the algorithms that it's resonated so that this message can get out to others as well. But secondly, I want you to explore your patterns. I want you to think about your upbringing. Now, this doesn't have to mean that you look back on your parents or those who raised you with disdain or with blame. But if we can look at how we were raised with self-awareness and non-judgment, then we could see the ways in which maybe things were put upon us from too early an age, or see the time that we started to internalize these issues. And a lot of creative people, a lot of geniuses, a lot of starseeds, lightworkers, empaths, healers, whatever you resonate as, have taken on this tendency to self-actualize or self-internalize difficulties that were going on, or overwhelm that was going on in childhood, right? You could have had the most amazing childhood and the most amazing parents, but if you were going through an experience that was overwhelming to you and to your nervous system, it still resonates and counts as trauma, because trauma is not just attack and abuse. Trauma is also anything that overwhelms the nervous system to a degree, and that's going to differentiate and be different for each person. Even siblings that grew up in the same circumstances and scenarios, they're different people. Even twins are different people. Their nervous systems will respond differently, and some people's nervous systems have been programmed or more adapted to respond by trauma. And this is why we can later in life find that we have things like PTSD or CPTSD and have just been labeling it as anxiety because we were not defining our traumas as trauma, because other things, quote unquote, are worse in the world than what we seemed to have gone through. But I want to encourage you to be kinder to yourself, look upon your past with kinder eyes, realize that anything that was overwhelming to you that caused you to dissociate or internalize an issue could be defined as trauma and could have caused you to go into this fight, flight, or freeze trauma response. And the freeze and the fawn responses are very similar. So the freeze response will be to dissociate, and then sometimes the fawn response will go on top of it in terms of then people pleasing or externalizing an internal need that we may have by recognizing that something is going on, recognizing that we may need comfort or support in that moment, but instead projecting that outward and being that fawn of putting the attention or the help or the energy on someone else. And we could become experts at this in terms of, yes, we may have this extraordinary ability to see other people's problems and to help with them. However, if we are continuously helping or healing from a place where we have not also provided for ourselves or made sure that we have something in place before, during, and or after to provide for ourselves, then we are self-betraying, and we can be doing so and sharing and helping and healing from burnout, which provides an imbalance in the energy worlds, an imbalance that will eventually have to be paid, right? Because the universe abhors imbalance. And so that may come about by something like us becoming sick, or us becoming depressed, or us becoming resentful at having provided those things for others, because we were still doing so from this wounded place of how the ego, the spiritual ego, or the fawn response developed from our childhoods or our early interactions. Now, I know we didn't get much into the spiritual ego, but how that differentiates for me than the traditionally known ego is that people will spiritually bypass, or try to spiritually bypass, and create this ego that says, well, I have to do this, or I should do this, right? Should being a very dangerous word, because it's the right thing to do, or because I can, or because I have the gifted ability to do this, even though I may not have other provisions for myself. And that is where we have this spirituality element come in as an excuse to self-betray or only help others, which in fact makes us martyrs. There are some other circumstances that I have seen where, we have a lot of support and energy coming at us, and then we feel that we have enough or more than enough, and so then we can share from our overflow. But even in those instances, I find that it's healthy to set up containers or practices where we are helping people still with boundaries, and where we are making promises to ourselves that we will stop when it feels overwhelming, we will take breaks as we need to, and we will find ways to replenish any energy extended. Now, if you are doing this as a vocation or career, obviously that replenishment can come in the form of money or other forms of energy exchange, in exchange for your time or your energy, your expertise, or your services. If you are doing this as a friend, a caring friend or family member in relationships, this replenishment could come in other forms, such as you giving yourself a self-care day, or finding ways to rebalance that relationship with others by allowing them to provide something for you at another point, agreed upon, of course, that falls in line with their areas of empowerment or expertise. So that can be a healthier way to approach you sharing and giving, where it doesn't have to become caretaking, self-betraying, fawning, and people-pleasing. So I hope that that has helped you today, beautiful souls. I hope that it has enlightened something for you to go forward in your journey and your healing, perhaps even inspired you to create a practice where after you give, you also develop a way for you to receive. Remember, you can give to yourself or allow the universe to give to you as a means of receive as well. That could be something simple, like I said, taking a self-care day, watching your favorite movie, taking a break from social media or your phone. All of those things are going to be up to you, and if you have been stream of consciousness writing along with me, ideas may come to you in that vein. If you would like to work on this with spiritual support with me, I invite you to check the link in the video description for the contact for consult link to speak with me and see if we are a good fit for me to build you a quantum, Sikhem, and shamanic energy healing container, or perhaps do trauma soul retrieval with you, or life and consciousness coaching. I find that these things are deeply ingrained patterns, and so creating energy or transformative energy healing containers can really help us to address that for you in rewriting these patterns that you may have formed. And I would love to work with more of you in that capacity. I also offer individual sessions and Akashic Records readings. Other spiritual offerings and more can be found through my website, Damcl Designs, damcldesigns.com, along with energy art and enlightened merch. So I would love to have you visit me in those description links or on my website. I would also love it for you to subscribe and follow me here on YouTube, or perhaps on Instagram, which is linked in the description as well, so that we can keep in touch and you can catch up with other chat and channel sessions in the playlist, which is also linked below. If you would like to support me and my public works that I share freely, you can do so by leaving energy exchange or appreciation donations through paypal.me/thesenlightenededits or the donate links in the video description below. Donations, of course, are not necessary and all amounts are always appreciated. I share the opportunity to receive donations, number one, of course, to help support me and my works and my channel and keep them open and flowing, but also as an example, specifically in this case for you, that we can be open to support from all and any areas who are able to share them freely. So thank you so much to those of you who are called and drawn and able to support me and my works in that or any way, simply by being here and extending your energy and sharing this as you are called is also an appreciated form of energy exchange. With that, I am going to close this chat and channel session and invite you to either meditate or write some more along with your guides, and I hope to see you next time. Be blessed with love, light, and light codes. Love, Danielle, #Damcl at These Enlightened Edits of damcldesigns.com.